Wait, those 30-day record release planners are not telling you everything that you need to know about business for your record release, and this video is going to fill that gap. But first, be sure to like and subscribe because there will be a part 2 and maybe a part 3. And don't worry, I'm a college professor in the music industry and a 10-time author, so you're in good hands. Now let's get started. Split sheets are an important part of the record release process because they help to define among any co-writers the percentage shares that they own in the song and the control that they have over that song. The last thing that you want is for a co-writer to try to use the song in a way that you don't approve of, or to try to claim that they own a bigger percentage share in the song. You can get a split sheet example in my book, Introduction to Music Publishing for Musicians. I suggest you look it up and get your split sheet signed today. Licenses are an important part of the record release process because, frankly, they can save you from an expensive lawsuit. If you're sampling or interpolating people's works, be sure to contact the music publisher and clear those samples. If you're buying beats, make sure that you understand the licensing agreement between you and the beat maker of what you can and cannot do, and make sure that that beat maker did not create a beat using unauthorized samples. If you're covering people's songs, make sure to get a cover license either through your distributor or by contacting the Harry Fox agency. I've got a great video on covering songs on my YouTube channel. Be sure to check it out. Work made for hire agreements can be one of the most important parts of the record release process because they indicate that the studio musicians and the producer are not going to be entitled to any rights in your songs or your masters. A work made for hire agreement must specifically state that it's a work made for hire agreement. It must indicate the scope of the work and discuss their compensation terms. Work made for hire agreements can be found at the back of my book, the 3rd edition of Introduction to Music Publishing for Musicians. Copyright registration can be an extremely important part of the record release process because if somebody infringes you and rips you off, and you register in a timely manner before they rip you off, you could be entitled to statutory damages of anywhere from $750 to $150,000 per case of infringement. I suggest registering as either a group of unpublished works or a group of published works on an album by going to copyright.gov and clicking on the ECO tutorial right now. Getting a DBA, doing business as, and an EIN, an employee identification number, are potentially 2 important things that you need to do for your record release, particularly if you're going to be doing business under a fictitious name. So for example, my music publishing company's name is Mistra Music and my name is Bobby Borg. If someone were to send me a royalty check to Mistra Music, I would not be able to go into a bank and cash that because they would not be able to identify me as being the same person. So getting your DBA with the county clerk's office, look that up, and getting an EIN number with IRS.gov are potentially 2 more important things you need to do for your record release. The city business tax certificate is something that a lot of musicians do not know about, but can be an extremely important part of the record release process. Anybody that's working in their city, whether not profitable or not, must obtain a city business tax certificate. Otherwise, you can be filed with a misdemeanor and you'll have to pay fees. So go to any browser and type in your city followed by tax business certificate to find out more information about how you can get your certificate today. Getting a business entity like an LLC or an S-Corp could be an important step in the record release process if, 1, you want to be able to take advantage of certain tax breaks you might be entitled to, 2, you want to limit the liabilities in which someone suing you could grab, or 3, you just want that brand appeal. After all, Bobby Borg, LLC does look pretty cool, but just be sure to talk to a business manager or accountant to make sure that the time you're going to spend running these entities and the amount of fees that you have to pay each year are actually going to be worth it against the money that you're actually going to be bringing in. Metadata is a vital step in the record release process because it helps to identify your album, your songs, and ultimately get you paid. Metadata can include things like the ISRC code, which identifies the song, the UPC code, which identifies the album. You can include copyright information. You can include the authors and splits in a song, and even the BPM too. Metadata is typically inserted into the song file itself using software like iTunes, or you can use something like disco.io. Just be sure that the metadata is thoroughly and correctly inputted into your song before your record release. So get to it right now. Album cover artwork and copy can be another important part of the record release process, particularly if you're going to be making physical product like vinyl. Include the copyright notices for your songs, your master recordings, and also the artwork. On the latter note, just be sure that you actually have permissions to use the artwork. Along the lines of permissions, if you have any musicians that you're featuring, be sure to include permissions from their record company if they are signed. You also want to be able to include your own publishing company name and your PRO, performing rights organizations. Include your own record company name if you have one, your address, and all of your social media handles as well. Finally, if you think you're going to be selling your record in retail, be sure to include a UPC code from your distributor as well. Federal trademark registration might be another important step in the record release process because now you're going to be doing business in a wider geographical region. Federal trademark registration makes it easier to sue somebody that might be using your name or a similar logo. The process to get federal registration is a little bit detailed. You have to conduct a thorough search. You have to decide on what class of federal trademark registration you need, and you have to pay some fees. But if you go to uspto.gov, you'll be able to find all the information you need. You can always speak to an operator. And by the way, you can also read the chapter in my other book, Business Basics for Musicians. Now, another important step in the record release process is to make sure that you get paid on both sides, the master side and the publishing side. So make sure to check out version 2 of this series called Checklist to Self-Releasing Music, Part 2, Royalty Collection Must-Dos. My name is Bobby Borg, helping musicians turn their art into more successful business. Peace, love, later.